What's up guys, this is Nico from Team Limitless and today we will be taking a look at Passimian, which is a new budget deck from Sun and Moon, which is getting some hype but also some hate from others, so I decided to take a look at this deck. And yeah, let's get into our deck list first before we go into some games. And yeah, our main attacker is obviously Passimian. We don't use its fling attack simply because we don't even run fighting energies and it's just not good. We run Passimian for his team play attack. Team play does 30 damage for each of our bench Passimian plus the 10 basic damage. Um, yeah, so if we attack with Passimian himself, our damage cap is 100 or 110 with Fighting Fury Belt, but obviously we also run some other Pokemon, for example Mew. Mew's Memories of Dawn obviously allows us to use any attacks of our basic Pokemon in play. So we want to use Passimian's attack to attack for 130 or 140 with the Fighting Fury Belt. Our other Pokemon are mostly support, but we also run an alternative hitter. Um, yeah, that comes in very handy, especially if we have one or maybe even two Passimians prized. This is Taurus GX. The new Taurus GX is probably one of the best card in a lot of people's opinion from the new set, and it does 20 plus 10 damage for each damage counter with Rage, 60 damage with Horn Attack, and Mad Bull GX does 30 damage for each damage counter on Taurus. So let's for example say our opponent uses Sky Return to do 30 damage to Taurus. This is already 90 damage with Mad Bull GX. So you can imagine how high this attack is going to scale against certain matchups, especially if our opponent isn't able to one-shot Taurus. Um, so in most cases, Taurus will just be sitting active if we need it. So it's going to take some damage, and then we use it to ideally draw some prize cards. And with the help of Town Map, we can definitely get the Passimians that are in our prize cards. Then we run one Shaman. One Shaman is definitely enough in this deck because we run a lot of trainer cards to thin out our deck. Cards like the balls all thin out our deck. We run 9 balls overall, 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Nest Ball, and 1 Repeat Ball. Then we also have cards like Acrobat. We have Trainer's Mail. So there are plenty of cards to thin out our deck very fast. And with the help of Sycamore, we obviously get through our deck very fast. And which you also have to keep in mind, we have a limited amount of bench space, and we want to have 4 Passimian in play, so this leaves like 1 bench space if we have an active Mew. So this bench space is mostly even used for a second Mew, Taurus, or Oranguru. There's actually no point in running more than 1 Shaman. Yeah, then we also run Oranguru as well from the new set. Also one of the monkeys, which kind of is the theme of this deck. And yeah, Oranguru helps us, especially in the late game against late game ends, lets us draw up to 3 cards, so it's basically a weaker version of Artillery, but as a basic Pokemon, so it's definitely very nice, especially if our opponent uses N2 2 or 1 cards. So we are able to have a higher chance of drawing one of our supporters or versus Seeker. And trainer cards are pretty simple. As we only run 4 DCE, we definitely use Special Charge against decks where we have to use more than 3 or 4 Passimian, or if we have to discard double colorless energy. So there are plenty of situations where you want to have the Special Charge. Then we run Revive to get back our Passimians when they get knocked out, because obviously we want to have the highest possible damage in play at any given time. So it just makes sense to get our Passimians back when they get knocked out. And we also run pretty much a 5th Revive, which is Buddy Buddy Rescue. Buddy Buddy Rescue also allows us to use Shaman again if we need it, because we can get Shaman and bench it, because Revive already benches the Pokemon instantly, so it won't work on Shaman. But in most cases, we will bench the Pokemon right away, which we get with Buddy Buddy Rescue. So it's actually 5th Revive. Other than that, rerun the basic supporter line, rerun 4 Sycamore, rerun 3 N and 3 Lysander. because yeah, we just have the space to run an additional Lysander. There's no point not to run it. And we also use one Pokemon Ranger to get rid of Jolteon because Jolteon is we don't have any out against Jolteon if we don't use Ranger or if we have Escape Rope plus Lysander. So having the Pokemon Ranger is definitely very good in this matchup, especially because Jolteon has weakness, so Passimian can knock it out very quick after we use Ranger. Another problem for this deck is that we have obviously a limited amount of damage, so we run Faded Town to be able to deal a little bit better with Megas, because yeah, for example, Ray is probably the most annoying example because it even has fighting resistance, so we have to use Mew, but even Mew won't be able to deal more than 140 damage, so it makes sense to run Faded Town. And when I tested this deck first, I actually played against Ray, and the Faded Town was able to stay a couple of turns in play because he already had all of his Skyfields gone, and I believe it dealt like 140 or 160 damage combined on 2 Mega Rays, so it's definitely a very good card in this deck. You can also consider running Skyfield, but I don't like it too much because, as I explained, usually you sometimes want a 6 bench space, but more than that you will never need, so running Faded Town is completely fine, but you can also run Skyfield if you feel like you need it. Other reason why you definitely need the stadium is Perilous City, because if you aren't able to kick the Perilous City, you just max out at 90 damage from your benched Passimians and plus the 10, so you're maxing out at like 110, even with Mew, so this is just not good. So having kick gems is very important, and yeah, I think that sums it up pretty much, and I'll see you again when we get into our games. So what's up guys, here we go in our first game right away. We are actually up against Vileplume, which is not what you want to see if you play Passimian, but there are still ways to get around, especially with Taurus in the deck, which is one of the points why Taurus is so good in this deck and you don't want to rely just on Passimian. And yeah, I used my first turn like you would against most Vileplume decks to thin out our deck, and of my deck, just so that if he uses an N, or in late game just for top decks, we won't draw our trainer cards, and I'm actually able to get rid of a lot of cards right here. I actually draw an Escape Rope as well to promote Mew, because Ranges does 40 damage with his first attack, so even if he gets the perfect setup, which is like Vileplume with Floatstone and the Rantis with an energy, he won't be able to knock out Mew. But I also don't want to leave Taurus up active, because if he doesn't, I want to be able to switch through my attackers, maybe even use Skyreturn the Shaman. So being able to promote Mew is just the best way to play in this situation. I actually used Versus Seeker at the end of my turn to get a Lysander. This way I'll be able to, even if I decide to not Sycamore next turn because of whatever top deck I get, I can still use a different supporter, and if I use Sycamore I would discard the Versus Seeker anyway, so there's actually no point not to get the Lysander. If he use, and there also the N explanation comes in, because if he uses an N, we just have an additional Lysander which we could actually use aside from a Sycamore, which we wouldn't be able. As I said, I Sycamore here, and this is actually a very bad hand. It's at least a supporter for next turn, but yeah, I'm just promoting Taurus right here because this is just the best play in this situation. I'm definitely going to a Sycamore there, again getting rid of useless trainer cards, and getting DC is very important because now we just put a lot of pressure on him, because if he leaves Vileplume active, we knock it out. If he promotes Lurantis, we can damage the Lurantis, and if he promoted anything else, he would also need an additional switching card or energies, but he obviously decides to go for Lurantis because it's his main attacker. Right here, I'm going to play the end first, of course. Try to get through my deck as much as possible play new Faded Tone, and here I'm actually going to use Mad Bully X, because if he healed 30 with his second attack, I could be able to knock it out with Mew, which I didn't expect was an Olympia, which this sneaky guy used, so yeah, this was actually very frightening to me, but thankfully he didn't decide to retreat and use X attack for whatever reason, because I would have actually been able to knock out Taurus, and I would have had no option to get rid of his Sorrentis, so I don't really know why he decided to leave his Floatstone Vibe obviously active and not retreat, but we take this. Very good for us. Taurus putting in a lot of work, and yeah, frightening the knockout on Laurentis, so he definitely has to get rid of this Taurus right now. Which he actually doesn't. So we are able to use Rage for exactly 110 to get rid of his Laurentis. But on the other hand, he didn't really have an option to not attack, so it's probably the smartest to attack with Flower Supply and support a new Laurentis on his bench. Yeah, here we get rid of the Laurentis and actually get a 4th Passimian from the prize cards. This is very good for us. We're actually in a very, very good spot. You also didn't have to bench Shaman so far, so if Taurus gets knocked out, we can just bench Passimian and also have 2 Mews in play, which is actually very huge, especially with the teammates in hand, who allows us to get 2 DC pretty much. But there, he gets rid of our hand using N, but we pretty much do the best possible hand. This turn I'm actually making a slight misplay, which I pretty much noticed right after I announced my attack, or I clicked on the attack on this program more so, because in this situation I can't really damage his Laurentis too much, so I decided to go for the Vileplume Lysander play, and yeah, actually, as you actually saw, I clicked on the Shaman because I realized it would have actually been a lot smarter to use Setup, draw some cards, then attack with Shaman itself with 30, because again, I did 100 damage with Mew, so 30 damage would actually be enough to knock Vileplume out on the next turn. But the Shaman play would have also allowed me to get some new cards. Depending on the game state, this could have actually been a very, very big mistake, but right here I'm in a very good spot, so I just use Sky Return with Mew that turn after to conserve as many DCs as possible, and also have Shaman still in play, because if he plays N, I just need a DCE to be able to attack with Sky Return. But since we're able to play trainers, this should be over pretty much, since we can basically use any card we want. So right here, I'm just going to attach some Fighting Fury Belts. I attached one to Shaman because I don't want it to be Lysandered and knocked out by Laurentis, because this could, depending on what he plays as well during his turn, could put us in a pretty rough spot. Right here we are actually in a position, if he uses Laurentis' second attack, which he most likely will, to heal his damage. We are just in range for a knockout with Mew, so I'm just going to retreat, Mew, energy, and use team play. Use team play for the knockout to win the game, even though we had Passimian Price and he had his turn to Vileplume, which is actually very good. Right here, in our second game, we are up against Yveltal with Evolutions. So he's playing Umbreon and yeah, the evolutions from Ancient Origins. For example, Jolteon. The other evolutions from the set would be Vaporeon and Flareon. Flareon could actually be a very good card in the upcoming format because of all these Laurentis variants that people are testing. So if people are actually going to play the deck, it's actually pretty smart to play Flareon in, for example, Vespiquen variants, just to get rid of opponents' Laurentis. very easy. Here I again decided to play Taurus for pretty much the same reason as last game. Being able to stall out some turns with Taurus, not necessarily even in the early game. Late game is also fine, just have an additional out to potentially win the game a lot easier. Yeah, which I forget to mention is that he also, in addition to Umbreon's GX attack, which discards 2 energies in play, or 2 energies your opponent has in play more so, he also runs a lot of energy removal cards like Crushing Hammer, Team Flare Grunt, and Enhanced Hammer, which is a problem for our deck if we want to, like we just did, to 2-hit knockout, for example, in Yveltal. But if we're able to 1-hit stuff like Umbreon, for example, this shouldn't matter too much, but we won't be able to knock out Umbreon in 1-hit for now, because obviously we have the prize Passimian again. Yeah, but they decided to promote the Taurus for the reason I mentioned, because Umbreon, it's actually impossible for Umbreon to 1-hit Taurus, and if there's actually the only way that he can get rid of Taurus would be to attack with Strafe 3 times, which is 90 damage, and then attack with the second attack for 90, but this simply doesn't work because I have a Fighting Fury Belt attached, so there's actually no way for him to knock out the Taurus while having his Umbreon active. Unless he obviously uses Strafe 4 times, which is 120. Oh, this is even only, he has to use it 5 times, so it's 150, and then he attacks for 90, which is 240, which is obviously 20 damage. 20 damage more than Taurus with a Fighting Fury Belt has, but you have to keep in mind he also has to promote something every time, and eventually even Rage, which isn't the which is basically a weaker form of our GX attack. When Rage is able to knock out Shamans, he's already in a very rough spot, and right here we actually get 2 more prizes, still no Passimian, but this puts us at 60 damage, which is 180 with our GX attack, so we could just knock out Shaman, but yeah, usually, as always, our opponent has energy removal cards, so I can't play Lysander and double colorless in one turn because I have to Sycamore. But I don't even get the DC. They decided to save my escape rope because this could actually come in huge at a later point of this game, where I just promote Mew, retreat for Taurus to knock out something on his bench. And this is, spoiler alert, actually what's going to happen at the end of the game. But for now, just wait and see. And I decided to play the escape rope, and if I get the DC right now, if I would have gotten the DC right now, I would be able to attack on his active Umbreon, which he can't just retreat unless he attaches to energies. But I decided to go for a safer play and just wait until Taurus has enough damage to draw the last prize card. But there, as I said, I get Trainer's Mail for Escape Rope, and he promotes the Yveltal, so he has no other option in promoting one of his GX or X. And all we need is the DC to get the knockout, which wins us the second game. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it and it gave you some insight on this new budget deck with Sun and Moon. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode of Road to Sheffield.